Telltales. Written by Hyperexponential. Read by SolarPony. With voice actors The Fangirl, OtisCat123, and Obab Scribbler.
Just a minute!
Rarity laid down her shears and hurried to answer the frantic pounding at the entrance to her boutique. It was not the time of night when she normally received visitors. But then again, normally ceased to have much meaning when one was an element of harmony. Releasing the latch and swinging open the door, Rarity confronted there in the darkness a face at once familiar and very unexpected. Her own. A rough hoof shoved Rarity back inside, and her caller, Rarity's twin in figure as well as face, barged in after her. Galloping hooves approached. Seconds later, Twilight Sparkle and Applejack stood in the light of the boutique's open door. There before them stood two Rarities, entirely indistinguishable, and looking at each other up and down in apparent shock.
What's going on?
Cried one of the Rarities.
Who is this?
Wailed the other, pointing a shaky hoof at her double. Twilight took immediate charge.
Hush, both of you.
The Rarities did as ordered and looked expectantly at Twilight for further commands. Twilight, winded from the pursuit, took several deep breaths before continuing.
Go to the center of the room and stand a pony's length away from each other.
The Rarities eyed each other suspiciously, but complied. They were out of easy reach of each other, but a single pony could keep close watch on both of them. If either were to bolt, there would be no escape from the purple magic pulsing from Twilight's horn.
I say we have us a problem,
whispered Applejack to Twilight from the corner of her mouth.
I'd say you're right,
Twilight whispered back, then addressed her captives.
One of you already knows exactly what is going on, but for the benefit of the other Rarity, the real Rarity, here's the story. Late this afternoon, Fluttershy thought she saw a changeling lurking at the edge of the Everfree Forest. She alerted Applejack and me, and we've been tracking Fluttershy's mystery creature ever since. We've been led quite a chase, playing cat and mouse over half of Ponyville. We must have finally gotten too close. The changeling broke and ran. We followed and, well, here we all are.
And now we gotta separate the sheep from the goats.
Rarity number 1, the Rarity on the left, shot a venomous look at Applejack.
I beg your pardon?
Applejack coughed and corrected herself.
Make that separate the ponies from the changelings.
Let's just say Rarity from the imposter,
suggested Twilight, shifting her gaze back and forth between Rarities.
Only how are we supposed to do that, Twi? You got some magic that'll do the trick?
Sorry, Applejack. We just don't have very much information about changelings. I don't have a spell for telling them apart from ponies.
Shoot! Guess we're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way.
Unnoticed throughout the exchange, Rarity's cat lay curled in repose on her cushion. The confusion of the last few minutes had not been enough to rouse obsolescence. But now she rose, yawned, and stretched before looking around at the group encroaching on her space. She wore an expression suggesting that, as bad as one Rarity was, two could only be worse. Opal abandoned her cushion in search of a pony-free spot.
Okay, time for a few questions.
Applejack let a moment pass for the challenge to sink in, then began.
Who's your sister?
Sweetie Belle!
The twin ponies said in unison.
Who's her best friend?
Your sister, Applebloom.
Said Rarity 1.
And Scootaloo.
Said Rarity 2. Applejack turned back to Twilight.
This could be harder than I thought.
You've got the right idea. We just need to ask the right question. Something only the real Rarity would know.
She then took her turn at quizzing the rarities.
Let's see. Oh, I know. What exciting news did Rainbow Dash get last week?
Rarity 1 jumped in first again.
She was invited to submit her application to the Wonderbolts.
She said, looking genuinely pleased. Rarity 2 made a dismissive noise.
That was all over town. What she told me was that Spitfire is writing her a personal recommendation.
Rarity 1's lip curled.
Time to up the stakes.
Applejack told Twilight.
Who is Tom?
Asked a smirking Applejack.
I thought we agreed to.
Said Rarity 2 before cutting herself off. She shifted uneasily.
Oh, very well. Tom is some pony with whom I had a brief friendship.
Some pony?
He was a rock! A big dumb rock! Does that answer your question?
It surely does, darling.
Applejack turned to Twilight.
If that ain't Rarity, it's the next best thing to it.
I'm hoping for more than second best.
Rarity 1 watched this banter in what appeared to be open-mouthed astonishment.
I must be having a nightmare. Assaulted, held prisoner in my own boutique, my own home. And now my secret's casually bandied about by some two-bit imitation.
Rarity 1, eyes smouldering with hatred, rounded on her twin.
You, yes I say you, are the worst possible thing!
She's not half bad either.
Rarity 2 had endured her twin's tirade impassively now. Now it was her turn again. Rarity 2 beat out a slow, deliberate applause.
Bravo! It's performances like that give drama queens a bad name.
Facing her questioners, she continued.
If that hittable bit of play acting is even remotely representative of my behavior, then you have every reason to lead both of us away in chains.
We could sell tickets to either one of these two, but we ain't getting nowhere, and we ain't getting there in much of a hurry neither.
Twilight spoke to both rarities.
Applejack's right. We have a stalemate and no way to resolve it. If we can't figure out which one of you is the real Rarity, we're gonna have to call for the princesses and hope they can break the deadlock.
But even Princess Celestia was fooled by Queen Chrysalis. Are you sure they can help?
No, I'm not. But I'm out of things to try,
said a despairing Twilight. She cried out to her captives.
Rarity, you have to come up with something to convince us that it's you. Something that leaves no doubt that you're the real one. Whichever one you are, there must be something that only you could possibly know. Something that you've shared with only Applejack or me.
Silence. Then the clearing of a throat.
Oh, well, Twilight. Perhaps you remember that little bit of girl talk we had here last week. I told you about a certain garment I'm making for myself.
Furious, Rarity 1 wheeled on her twin.
And just how do you know about that?
Rarity 2 snickered.
Nice try.
Rarity 1 turned back to Twilight.
Yes, we had that talk. It was me that was here. I mentioned a letter from a certain gentle stallion admirer.
Applejack's eyes went as big as they could get.
Yeah? Keep going.
Twilight glared at Applejack.
Not now!
Opal chose this moment to reappear, making her entrance with head and tail erect, possessing all the aloof dignity of which cats are the undisputed masters. She deigned to approach Rarity 1, then wound her way through the immaculate white legs, rubbing up against them, arcing her back, and emitting a series of affectionate purrs. Opal disengaged herself and strode off, pausing just long enough to glance at Rarity 2 with a look of disdain bordering on contempt. Judgment rendered, Opal departed, bound no doubt for more important business. Every pony stood frozen for the time of a single heartbeat. Then Rarity 1 took a sudden step forward. Twilight reacted instantly. The look of confusion on Rarity 1's face gave way to one of almost comic surprise as a blast of purple energy caught her squarely in the chest. Her eyes rolled back in her head and she slumped to the floor. She was barely still before the others surrounded her.
She's not breathing!
Is she dead?
Stammered Rarity 2. Twilight put an ear against the still chest and heard nothing.
I don't even know if changelings have hearts.
Twilight stood, grief etched on her face.
I don't understand. I didn't hit her any harder than the changelings that attacked Kennerlot. I didn't mean to kill her. Just stop her.
Easy, Twi.
Said Applejack.
It's like you said. We don't know nothing about these changeling things.
Twilight's eyes grew wide, and she took a step back.
You don't suppose...
Don't go there, Sugar Cube. We both saw it. That cat ain't never gave the time of day to any pony except Fluttershy. No way that thing laying there is Rarity.
Rarity 2 spoke up.
Shouldn't she turn back into a changeling or something?
Twilight, her eyes fixed on the body on the floor, spoke as if in a dream.
A changeling would need to maintain its disguise in its sleep. If they sleep, maybe they need to be conscious to change shape.
Sure, that's gotta be it.
Applejack gave the body of Rarity 1 a hard stare before turning back to Twilight.
But you know, could be she's playing possum.
You're right,
said Twilight, grasping at the idea that the thing on the floor might still be alive.
You're not fooling us!
Twilight shouted at the inert form.
I'm gonna count to 3, and then I'm gonna burn you up. For real! So you better get up. Now!
Twilight bowed her head and added a plaintive,
Please.
They waited. Rarity 1 stirred not a hair.
Okay. I'm counting. 1, 2, 2.5.
Twilight reached out a hoof and shook the body to no avail.
3.
Twilight bit her lip, frustrated by Rarity 1's obstinance.
All right. You heard what I said.
A purple glow enveloped Rarity 1 and lifted her from the floor. Even then, it was not too late for a last-second confession. But then phantom flames began to lick at the body, starting at the hooves. There was never so much as a twitch. The alabaster coat shimmered and dissolved as the flames marched up the legs. Soon the body, and then the head, were engulfed in a pale purple fire. The mane and tail waved and flowed in a way that made Twilight think of the princesses. The flame consumed it all. No smoke, no ash, within seconds. Rarity 1 was gone. Twilight wept.
Even if she was a changeling, she had life, and I took it from her.
Rarity, now the one and only, took Twilight in a sympathetic embrace.
You couldn't have known.
Rarity released Twilight and spoke to her face to face.
Thank you, both of you. I don't know what might have happened if you hadn't arrived when you did. Not just to me, but to Ponyville, to all of Equestria. We may never know what you stopped, but I think you might have just saved us all.
Twilight's sniffle slowed. Rarity levitated a hanky and dabbed the tears from Twilight's eyes. Rarity's tone changed from consoling to a mock scolding.
No more crying. You did what you had to do. Write to the princess and she'll tell you the same.
And how about you?
Applejack approached Rarity.
You gonna be okay? Maybe you all come and stay with me in Twilight tonight.
Another slumber party?
Rarity suppressed a smile.
Thank you, Applejack, but Twilight's the one who needs you right now. Besides, I have a big order to fill tomorrow and a lot of sewing to get done tonight. Still, if it will help Twilight, dressmaking can wait.
That's okay, Rarity. I got it covered. On the farm, we see critters get hurt bad. Sometimes they die. Twilight ain't got much experience with that. Maybe I can help her see that what happened was an accident. Pure and simple.
If you need me, you know where I'll be.
Take her easy.
Rarity touched Applejack's shoulder.
And you take good care of Twilight, for both of us.
With a last look back, Twilight and Applejack stepped through the front door. The door clicked shut behind Twilight and Applejack. After so much turmoil, there was only the drone of crickets in the night.
Come on, Twilight, let's get you back to the library. Me and Spike will make you some herb tea and put you to bed, and I'll stay the night. Things will look better in the morning, I promise.
Beneath the star-filled sky, they had the streets of Ponyville to themselves. There would be time for unhurried talk on the way to the library.
Thank you, Applejack. This is so hard. Changelings.
Twilight shivered at the thought of them.
I'm just glad we were able to nip whatever this was in the bud.
Did we?
Said Twilight. The whirlwind in her head was beginning to subside.
Of course we did. You may have been a little rougher than you wanted, but that's one less changeling up to no good.
And what if there's more than one?
There was a long pause before Applejack answered.
Well, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
But how do we know they're not already here?
We'd know if they were. Look at the night. It took some doing, but that phony Rarity let herself get tripped up. Them changelings would have to know an awful lot to keep us fooled.
But that changeling did know an awful lot. She knew things that happened when Rarity and I were the only two in the room. How?
Twilight stared straight ahead into the blackness.
We'll have to raise our defenses. I'll research ways to tell ponies apart from changelings.
A far-off look came from Twilight as she pondered the problem.
The animals must hold the key. It was so easy for Opal to tell which Rarity was real.
Twilight's mind raced with ideas. Two of them collided. The result brought a troubled look to her face.
What if they're already here?
Twilight asked again, half to herself.
An advance force to gather intelligence for the main attack.
Again, Applejack laughed.
It's like I told you, we'd know.
But what if they're not ponies?
Applejack stopped in the circle of light cast by a street lamp and gave Twilight an uncomprehending look.
Then what would they be?
Twilight's insides went cold. It couldn't possibly be. The implications didn't even bear thinking of. Her every fibre insisted she must be wrong.
What if they're animals? Our animals?
Twilight's eyes pleaded for Applejack to tell her it was a silly idea, that her imagination was running away with her.
What better spy than a rabbit, or a tortoise, or a cat?
Or a farm dog?
Twilight barely felt the poisoned blade pierce her side. Her legs went numb, and she sank to her knees.
Dang it, Twi. You never did know when to let something go.
With the last of her failing strength, Twilight looked up at Applejack and saw nothing but pity in her eyes. Pity and a luminous, toxic green.